Boy, the South Alabama Jaguars were a fun team to watch in 2022, and I believe this is one of the Sun Belt favorites entering 2023 after what they did last year. A 10-win season, made a pretty solid bowl game, a huge jump in expectation for this program, as now, again, they are one of the favorites to win the Sun Belt Conference. But that's just the thing. They pretty much did everything under the moon and sun last year. They did not win the Sun Belt Conference. That is their goal for 2023, and it is a very realistic possibility. Can the Jaguars win the Sun Belt in 2023 and maybe even make a New Year's Six bowl game? Or is this team going to have a flash in the pan season and regress from last year? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm previewing and predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams. Sun Belt predictions are here. Guys, it means I'm doing your favorite teams. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. But there are more ways than that to help me support my channel. You're doing one right now by watching the video, and you can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you guys are willing and able to do to help me support my channel. All right, talking about the South Alabama Jaguars in 2023. Going to be a really, really fun team to watch this year again, is what I am believing to happen. Hey, how do we do things around here? Well, we're going to go through a roster overview and look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Jaguar football schedule, and we'll give it a good old breakdown, game-by-game preview and prediction. So without further ado, it's time to talk about the South Alabama Jaguars here in 2023. Quarterback room, it is the most important position on the field after all. Let's start with that. Well, you get your starter and backup back. Your backup in Desmond Trotter will be returning to this team. He had very limited playing time last year, but Carter Bradley really impressed last season. Had a 3,300 passing yard season, 3,336 yards to be exact, on almost 65% completion percentage. He had 28 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. Okay, that's a touchdown to interception ratio that definitely can be improved a little bit, but I absolutely think Carter Bradley is a good enough player to be able to go out, have a 3,500 yard, 30 touchdown season with fewer than 10 interceptions. That may not necessarily be what I expect from him. Actually, that kind of is what I expect from him this year. I think he's going to take a jump in his level of play. He'll be a really good quarterback for South Alabama. He'll be one of the best in the Sun Belt Conference, I believe. When you take a look at the running back room, Omni Wells was your fourth leading rusher last year. He will be gone, 242 yards. Sadly, no end zone trips for him last season, but that does mean your top three rushers are back from last season. LaDamian Webb was a 1,000-yard rusher last year on 209 carries, had 1,062 yards and 13 rushing touchdowns. You also get Braylon McReynolds coming back as well, 326 yards, no touchdowns for him. And then Marco Lee, 247 yards and 4 touchdowns for him last season. That's a pretty good 1-2-3 at the running back position for the Jaguars. Jalen Wayne, when speaking about wide receivers, was the second leading receiver last year, had 58 catches, 817 yards, led the way with 9 receiving touchdowns, that is, on the team. And you are going to lose him. But you do get 2 really good guys back. It was kind of like a 3-man race at wide receiver last year. It'll be a 2-man race this year as Devin Voisin and Colin Lacey are back. Almost 130 catches between them, almost 1,700 yards between them, and 11 receiving touchdowns between the two of them there as well. Really, both of them really good players. Voisin, the leading receiver, Colin Lacey, the third leading receiver from last season. They'll both be monstrous parts to this passing attack this year, and you do get some transfers coming in as well. Javon Ivory is a 3-star transfer coming over from the Memphis Tigers. And then Shamar Sandgren is a community college transfer, ranked 88th in the nation out of a community college, 12th rated wide receiver out of a community college or JUCO college. So you got some pretty good players entering the wide receiver room to pair with really good guys that already return. And speaking of return, your tight end room is going to be very deep this year. DJ Thomas James, your 4th leading receiver last year, 227 yards, 4 touchdowns. He comes back, as well as Lincoln Seffick, not Selfick. Don't know where the extra L came from. I apologize. Lincoln Seffick and Brandon Crum, both of them come back as well. And on the offensive line, Antarius Gray, Antoine Lewis, James Jackson, and Trey Simpson are going to be gone, but you do return Dante Lucas, Reggie Smith, and Adrian Strickland, among others that return for this offensive line. If the offensive line can kind of plug and replace, they're losing a lot of experience, a lot of very talented players. This is going to be a really good Jaguar offense as it was last season. But let's talk about the defense. Defense, Nate, what do we expect from the Jaguars on the defensive side of the ball? Well, if you know the South Alabama Jaguar football roster and you want to name any defensive lineman off that team from last year, they probably come back for 2023. Jamie Sheriff led the way with 6 sacks, 44 tackles, the leading tackler and sack leader on that defensive line. Wycavius Thomas, Charles Coleman were also 2 very good players. And then Brock Higdon, Ed Smith, and then Jamal Hickbottom, all of them return for this Jaguar defense. It'll be a very deep, very experienced, and very good defensive line for the Jaguars this season. When you take a look at the linebacker position, you do suffer a loss here with C.J. Reus going to be gone. 4 sacks, was second on the team, had 35 tackles. That made him good for a top 10 tackler last season. And then A.J. DeShazer was kind of a depth piece last year that you are going to be losing for the 2023 season. However, you do return pretty much everybody else. Trey Kaiser and James Miller were 2 top 3 tacklers for the team. Trey Kaiser with 76 and James Miller with 68, mixing a couple sacks for the both of them as well. Kashun Brown and Quentin Wilfong are 2 other names that are going to be returning to this team as well. And then when you take a look at the defensive back room, Darrell Luter, a really notable loss for this defensive back room. 7 passes defended, was second on the team. He did have an interception. It was a top 10 tackler, 42 tackles for the Jaguars last season. However, again, you want to name pretty much anyone else, they probably come back. Yam Banks is an absolute machine in the secondary. 50 tackles, did have a sack, 11 passes defended, 6 interceptions last season. He's a very, very good player. You couple him with the likes of Jaden Voisin, Keith Gallman, who come back after, I believe, season-ending injury before the season started last year, Marquise Robinson, Jalen Jordan, and a lot of transfers as well. Reggie Neely and Ladarian Craig are a couple community college JUCO transfers, and then some Power 5 transfers that are not on the board. Both of them former 3-stars out of high school, Jordan Buchanan over from Purdue, and Wesley Miller over from Mississippi State. So, Jaguars are poised for another big year in 2023 with all they have coming back and all they have coming in as well. Your head coach is Kane Womack, offensive coordinator Major Applewhite, and your defensive coordinator is Corey Batoon. Here's your first look at the Jaguar football schedule for 2023. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road will be in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game I think the Jaguars are going to be able to win. Any game in yellow is a game where, hey, okay, the other team's going to put up a little bit of a fight. It's going to be a close game, but the Jaguars will be able to win. And then red, of course, is a loss. And this team starts out with one of the best G5 versus G5 matchups in the 2023 football season when you don't, of course, mix between conferences as well. They played the Tulane Green Wave. That was the G5 representative last season in the New Year's 6 bowl game. And this game right here could go a long way in deciding who happens to be the G5 representative for 2023. This is going to be a very good game. We just saw all that South Alabama returns, and then when you take a look at what Tulane returns as well, Michael Pratt comes back. There are a lot of nice pieces around him, even though he's trying to replace his leading rusher and 2 leading receivers as well. And then that defense that was so good a year ago will still be really good this year. I'm going to give this one to Tulane. I still think they're the best program in G5 as of right now. South Alabama is going to be very, very close. I see this as a very close, very competitive game, but I think Tulane is going to make a little too many plays on defense, and I think they're going to be able to force that extra turnover or 2 to be able to win that game. And so Tulane will open the season with a win against South Alabama, which means the Jaguars open with a loss. They should be able to bounce back, though, in week 2, beat Southeastern Louisiana. Not much competition there before you get your Power 5 opponent on the schedule, and it is against Oklahoma State. And for a team like South Alabama, this is a pretty favorable matchup right here with Oklahoma State. It's a team that got ravished by the portal, including losing their quarterback in Spencer Sanders, but with all that they lost through the portal, they get back from the portal as well. Alan Bowman is coming into this program to be that starting quarterback. You get a lot of nice pieces around him. You get some good pieces defensively. And there are just some head coaches across the country that you don't doubt, and Mike Gundy is one of them. I see South Alabama playing a very close competitive game, but the Cowboys are going to be a little too much, handing the Jaguars their second loss of 2023. But they should bounce back and beat Central Michigan, a team that did not live up to expectations from what they did in 2021. There in 2022. Could be another struggle type years. They're losing a lot of pieces to the portal and otherwise as well. So that's a game the Jaguars should be able to win. And now you are in Sun Belt Conference play, and it is not an easy game for your first conference game of the season. You got to go on the road and play James Madison, who arose from the FCS ranks last season and was super impressive. Even though still this team cannot compete in a bowl game, cannot compete for a conference title, make no mistake, James Madison, head coach Kurt Cignetti's team is going to be ready to play anybody they have to. I could absolutely see this as a third loss there in 5 games for the South Alabama Jaguars. But James Madison is going to have to replace their starting quarterback in Todd Centillo from last year. They are getting some nice pieces back, but I think James Madison, with losing a couple key contributors on defense as well, still going to be able to trying to kind of plug up some of those holes. I think the Jaguars, while this is a very close competitive game, are going to be a little too much. I think the defense forces the extra turnover, which was a problem for James Madison last season, and the Jaguars are going to be able to beat the Dukes there for their first conference win of the season. And you should get number 2 pretty easily there on the road against ULM. I don't think that game is going to be much of a challenge there. The Warhawks, not a team that I'm liking quite that much entering 2023. So I see South Alabama being able to win that one fairly easily as well. And then you get your bye week perfectly split in middle half of the season. And then you got to play Southern Miss here as well. I think this could be a very interesting game. I think Southern Miss has got a lot of pieces coming back that are going to be able to make this challenging for South Alabama, but there is too much talent on this team. I think offensively, this team is going to explode in this game. Carter Bradley, LaDamian Webb, Voisin Lacey, and others just going to go off against this Southern Miss defense that is pretty susceptible. So I do like the Jaguars to be able to win that game there. And then I also do like them to beat the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns as well. This is a Ragin' Cajun team that, well, ever since Billy Napier left, I think we kind of knew was going to slide downhill. Hey, they were still pretty solid last year. I think they'll be pretty solid again this season as well, but not a team that I think is going to stand up to South Alabama this season. And then you get the game that maybe besides Tulane or Oklahoma State, or I guess I should say, you get the conference game that every Sun Belt fan, every South Alabama fan, and every Troy Trojan fan is circling, because this could be the game right here that decides the division and who goes to the conference championship game. I believe it did last season, and it probably will do so this season again here as well. Troy is going to be another very good football team this season. They return a lot offensively. Carlton Marshall, really, really good defensive player, leaves that defense, but there is still a lot of talent coming back, and Troy should also be one of the best teams in a group of 5, one of the best teams in the Sun Belt Conference this season. But I think Troy lost a little too much on defense, but I think would have really helped them here against South Alabama. I think this explosive offensive attack for South Alabama is going to be a little too much for Troy. Now, I know Troy can put up points in a hurry. We saw that in the Sun Belt Championship game last season, but I think the tables get turned this year. South Alabama goes on the road, gets a huge, huge victory, and they are going to be able to beat the Troy Trojans. All right, Arkansas State should be an easy win for this program. That's a Red Wolves team that I just don't think is going to be very good this year. While they may be able to take some steps in the right direction, again, don't see a team being super good here in 2023. Now, Marshall, that's a team that's going to put up a fight with pretty much anyone it has to play this season. They are going to be, I believe, replacing that quarterback position, but Rasheen Ali does come back. You got some good playmakers offensively. You got some really key defensive players coming back as well. I think this is going to be a tricky game for South Alabama to navigate, but all in all, I do see the Jaguars being able to win there. Just some of the inexperience, especially offensively with this Marshall team at the quarterback position, I think will lead them to their downfall there. South Alabama going to be able to win that game, and then you should win your final game of the year against Texas State. Again, a team that sits towards the bottom of the ranks amongst Sun Belt teams. So all in all, South Alabama, I see having an unblemished record in conference play, but just losing those 2 really tough road games out of conference. Now, this team, I think, can absolutely beat Oklahoma State. They can beat Tulane, But there are a lot of tricky games on the schedule, especially on the road. Their road slate is not kind this year at all. Tulane, Oklahoma State, James Madison, and Troy. Really, really tough games. I see you losing at least one of them, but this is going to be another successful year and definitely a year where you could be on your way to the Sun Belt Championship game, and I think they will. Hey, that's going to do it for my thoughts on the Jaguars. Hey, let me know yours in the comment section below, and remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video.